This episode of the Coalition Report is brought to you by Rod freaking Ferguson. Rod, what do you think about the Coalition Report?
Delicious.
What's up, gamers and gearheads? Welcome back to another Coalition Report. It's me, Brittality, to bring you all the Gears of War news that there was happening last week. I don't know why I went to that voice, but it happened, so let's just all accept it. Last week, Black Tusk Studios had its first Rodcast. If you don't know what Rodcast is, basically, the great bearded one, Rod Ferguson, gets on and answers questions and talks about Gears of War. He did this over at Epic, now he's bringing it back to Black Tusk Studios. We're just going to highlight some things from the podcast, and you can view the podcast either on YouTube or Twitch. The links are in the description. Rod mentions that they are only 100 days into making the new Gears, and they can't really go in depth and announce anything. They're still in what he calls the prototype phase. They will be sure to announce things as they come along and as they are able to push it out of their mouth holes. So with that said, again, there weren't announcements or reveals for this podcast. He basically just did this podcast to show the community that Black Tusk is here for us, they're listening to us, and they're really excited about making the new Gears of War. The bulk of the podcast was made of questions from the forums. Someone asked about will there be DLC for Gears of War 3 or Gears of War Judgment. Rod mentions that there will not be DLC or title updates for Gears of War 3 or Gears of War Judgment. The more time that they spend on those games is taking time away from making the new Gears of War. However, there will be updates to events. These will happen every couple of weeks. They're still working out kinks, and once those kinks are worked out, it may be every week that we see a new event. Some notable quotes from Rod. He says that the franchise can do a lot more now that Microsoft owns the IP. They can kind of expand its breadth and do a lot more stuff with it. So with that said, there may be a little decrease in limitations. He also goes on to says that after you've made the same game for 7 years, it's a bit harder to make it different, and they think that fans picked up on that when they made Gears of War Judgment. I think we can all agree on that, but I'm looking forward to expanding the universe that is Gears of War. A question was then asked about how closely Black Tusk will stick to the canon of the comics and the novels that Gears of War has. Rod says that they'll stick to the canon the best they can, but fun is more important to them than canon. If there's a decision to be made of whether to stick to the canon and the story that has been established in the novels, or whether the game is to be made more fun, they're going to make the decision to make it more fun. And I'm going to say I endorse that 100%. If you're with me, say aye. And a couple of cool announcements. Black Tusk will be sponsoring Hypefestation and Hypefestation 3 and these events. As you've noticed, they've been tweeting about it a little bit, so we really appreciate that. Something else really cool, they want to recognize community leaders, so being a part of the forum and being a forum member may lead to game unlocks. Now, these broadcasts won't happen every week. They'll just happen when they happen. He wants to be sure that they can actually talk about stuff and not say, well, we can't reveal that at this time. Now, just a little competitive news for you guys. Another episode of All About the Hype happened last week, but they did not discuss anything really new that we have not talked about on the Coalition Report before. However, there was a cameo by Everett Small, who is helping us with this event at eBash in Indiana. He talked a little bit about the venue. We didn't get to see a lot of it, but Captain Barbosa, Fatal Strike, and Fallout did visit the eBash Center and made a video. So they teased the video a little bit, and I'm really excited to see that. Make sure you stay tuned for that information. Also, LOX picks up Crushmo. Sorry, Chubbs, that I did not mention this last week, but here you go, buddy. That's all the news I have for you. However, we do have to go over some answers that you guys left me in the comments last week. Last week I asked, what should we call the new Gears of War series? And here are some of your answers. So let's discuss a little something new. I'm really eager to see your answers on this. Who do you think should be the main focus or main character of the next Gears of War series? Leave your answers in the comments, and your answer may show up on next week's show. And until the cog turns again, we'll have some more news for you next week. But love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed. And hey, are you subbed yet? No? Well, what are you waiting for? Be sure to sub to stay abreast, yes, I said breast, of all the Gears of War news. Love you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful week.